Hi, everyone. My name is Alexandra Vasquez. I am a senior content marketing specialist at G2, and this is Industry Insights. Today, I am joined by Jonathan Bland and Jason Steele, the co-founders of Omni Consulting, a B2B demand generation marketing agency. Hi, Jonathan and Jason. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, hey.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
I'm really looking forward to chatting with both of you about your experience in the industry and how things like the rise of B2B influencers and thought leadership ads are shaking it up. But before we get in too deep on the topic, I'd love to learn just a little bit more about you. So please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to co-found your company.
Yeah. I guess I can start and let Jason kind of chime in after. But let's see. I've been in B2B SaaS for 14 years. Ever since I was out of college, I was selling security software to the US government for a little bit and then jumped around different SaaS companies wearing all sorts of hats. And then found my way into marketing after doing sales for a little while. Got together with Jason. Love to say that we spent, 60-page business plan, got it all together and said, well, let's do OmniLab. But it came together pretty organically. And we said, hey, we had a few friends in the industry that needed some help. We did email marketing, we did some paid, we did a whole bunch of different things, and then solidified kind of the offering, doing just predominantly paid marketing, trying to drive qualified pipeline, kind of triggered on the demand gen agency category. And here we are today, a whole bunch of clients later. So that's, I guess, the very quick and dirty on my background. Let Jason chime in on
Yeah,
things.
that's the quick and dirty for sure. I mean, for me, I just come from a very techie background, a very hands-on background, managing from a fractional perspective, marketing for a slew of companies my entire life, as well as development and again, technology and process. And so I've made little startups here and there over my lifespan. And this one just seemed like a natural fit. And Jonathan, coming from the B2B space, as well as the marketing and sales arena, again, like he mentioned, it was just a really good synergy and has worked out quite well.
Amazing. I love to hear that. I can feel the strong partnership from over here. And your backgrounds make you some of the most perfect people to talk about this topic today. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
So something top of mind for a lot of marketing strategists these days, B2B influencers. And for those who might not even know what that is, it's essentially B2B influencer marketing is how companies are collaborating and creating content together to and with influential people in the industry, an industry that maybe is not as popular for influencers as you would think. How do you guys think B2B influencers are going to impact the effectiveness of paid media campaigns and marketing?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's still so nascent. There's still so few brands that are actually taking full advantage of influencer marketing because it's such a thing in D2C. They've been doing it for forever, right? And so yet again, B2B is kind of the laggard in this coming together. But I'm glad that, it's a good conversation because there's a lot of stuff that we can do, just like what we're doing right now, which is you guys partnering with people like us that have probably similar audiences, posting about in your blogs. It's a perfect example. But for me, all this comes down to is how do we build a better brand? How do we be more credible? How do we steal some audience, right? And so let's say that there's a guy by the name of Dave Gearhart out there that has a pretty big following. There's a company called Hockey Stack out there that has an attribution product. They might pay and or have some type of arrangement with Dave Gearhart, which they happen to, and they'd get Dave Gearhart to talk about their company in some positive light and say, "Hey, I use the software to do X, Y, Z," right? And so what they're doing is then riding on the coattails of all the audience building that Dave's built up over the years with his audience. And so that makes Hockey Stack a lot more credible, a lot more trustworthy, et cetera. And so the same thing's happening with tons of brands right now. We can go to some more examples later. But that's the big opportunity. And thought leader ads, which we'll talk into in a bit, is kind of where that is all going to start. So yeah,
Yeah. Just to add on to that, I think there's a big synergy between the organic nature of any kind of content, whether it's from an influencer or it's just good old fashioned organic that can bolster paid media specifically because it's not a one-stop shop. It's not a siloed kind of endeavor, right? And then just the general awareness that you gain from the influencer side of the house that one like a brand, a company, a product wouldn't necessarily have. And then if you're seeing that the product offering is a solution to a problem in the market by human beings that are non-company based individuals, super strong because people at the end of the day, they trust people more than they trust brands. And so the influencer side of the house in the B2C space has picked up on that for quite some time. when you're using more transactional products, but it carries over to really anything. I mean, everyone just wants to do business with people that they trust, and they want to have relationships with people that they trust. And so it's really fundamental to the biology and psychology of just human beings. It just happens that we are in this really cool space right now with influencer marketing being able to ride on those coattails, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan, you mentioned thought leader ads. And I think it is a perfect time to kind of lay the groundwork for that. So could you tell me a little bit about what that is really and why it's becoming so important in the B2B space?
Yeah, so they were released last year. I think it was around either March or June timeframe, somewhere around there. So they haven't been around that long. It's a newer format. But basically, all it is you going to your personal profile on G2 and posting about something, and then going into Campaign Manager in G2 and saying, cool, I want to sponsor this post so that I can guarantee distribution directly to my ICP. And so that's all it is. And so there's been the initial launch of just employee-based thought leader ads, which are the ones that we're going to talk about too, which are just like you work at G2 right now, I work at Omni, Jason works at Omni, so on and so forth. Then there's non-employee thought leader ads, and so which are very interesting because now the use cases now get a lot larger. You've got partners, customers, investors, influencers, all the other people that you can potentially get to say something about your product, or maybe folks that unprompted are saying how much they love G2, how much they love XYZ company. There was an example of Clay doing this exact thing. A guy posted about like the 5 steps to run the best outbound sequence ever, something like that. And he mentioned Clay, one of these products within his post. And I don't know if this is exactly what happened, but from the outside perspective, Clay probably reached out, saw it, and was like, oh man, this is awesome. Let's promote that directly to our audience because this guy has a huge following, tons of social proof on the post, and he's mentioning Clay. And so anyway, that's the kind of example. That's basically all there is. It's pretty easy what they are. So
Great. Okay. And then, yeah, question for both of you. You kind of touched on this as well, but I'd love to know, like a side by side, what is the biggest difference between thought leader ads and the other type of ads that agencies are running?
yeah, pretty simple. I mean, you got single limit. I mean, there's all sorts of ad formats, right? There's carousels and talking about paid social like Meta, LinkedIn, people are familiar with. So there's carousels, there's single image ads, there's all sorts of things. Those are coming from your company. And so the company is kind of the front face of the ad. And so when you look at the ad, you're going to see the company name, G2, OmniLab, or whoever. The leader ads is all about the person. It goes back to what Jason said. It's about just kind of that human relationship that you're establishing. And so all companies, it's great to have a layer of ads clearly that are associated back to your company because that creates brand recall and associations with visual assets that are attached to the brand. But it's also important to know, like, hey, Alexandra at G2 has a great perspective on how to leverage intent data at G2 to drive blah, 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 whatever the thing is, right? And so people start to begin to associate you and or other people from G2 with the product G2. And so that's the whole idea with it, is to have that human relationship like Jason was saying earlier.
And it's interesting as well because thought leader ads is the new flavor of the week, right? It's fairly new. People are jumping on the bandwagon. It's a great objective from the back end of a channel. But there's also that world where we've kind of been doing that a little bit more and more from the B2B space for a long time now, when you're getting a human in front of a camera and you're talking about a product from a human perspective and posting that as an ad, right? It kind of accomplishes, in many respects, the same mechanism, or the same outcome, I should say, is getting a human being to be the proof point for a brand's product market fit and or the solving of a pain of a company or industry in one way or the other. But so it's a very interesting kind of split screen, if you will, between the objective of thought leadership and then the mentality of getting human-based content out into the world, which you can achieve in multiple ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys mentioned it, but I would love to dive even deeper into the different types of influencers in the tech space. There's a lot of different options, as you guys mentioned, but the two that I would love to hear from you about the differences in strategy and why companies might do one or the other is the difference between the non-employee influencer and then having those employee thought leaders in campaigns.
Yeah.
I'll give you one other example because yeah, I think people kind of get the core difference. One other example might be This would be a rare case, but I've seen it happen a couple times where you don't really have a vocal SME, subject matter expert, at the company, but there's a very vocal SME outside of your company that you have a relationship with. And so you want to establish a better relationship with this person because they have an audience, people that they can trust, kind of like the Dave Gerhardt example, or you could name, 100 other influencers in the B2B space. And so the example would be to say, hey, great, we don't really have anyone that's willing to kind of step up and put themselves out there because there's a whole lot of things you got to battle, like, imposter syndrome and the fear of posting what they're going to say, all sorts of things, right? But for someone already that's built an audience, that already has established credibility, like that SME somewhere else, that's the opportunity for a company to say, hey, great, we need to partner with this person and we need to be best friends with them. And whether there's a financial arrangement or whether there's not, or some other type of arrangement, we need to make sure that they're at least saying positive things about our company, talking about how they use it if they are a user of it, all sorts of things like that. And so, like, that'd be an easy example. The Clay example I mentioned was the other one. Again, I don't know if they had an arrangement to have that post done before, but I think it's highly likely that there's just people that love this product, and they probably reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, we got to get our hands on doing something with this post," because they've got a whole creator program behind it. So there's
Yeah.
just some thoughts there.
Two thoughts from me, just non-employee thought leaders externally validate the brand, and the internals have a sense of, okay, I get it.
Good
It's the
point.
CEO of the company. I get why he's doing this. It is a natural thing to do, is to get out into the public eye, right? So I think that there's really a world where both need to exist, right? Because they serve a little bit of a different purpose, and they're going to be received a little bit differently from both sides of the house. But
That's a great point. Yeah, because I think it's always one of those things. If you're the company putting out the content, there's always just this inherent bias of anything
yeah,
you say, right? Because yeah, of course you would say something positive about G2 or this or that, right? But if it's something else that's not G2 or not XYZ company, all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, maybe this is legit. Let me see what they're all about, right? Someone else is saying good stuff about them. So yeah, that's a good
exactly.
point.
But if you can't find anybody to say good stuff about, you just get the CEO to go do it.
Exactly. There you go. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I totally agree. As a consumer, I definitely put a big weight on people who are clearly have nothing to gain
Right.
from their opinions. I think there's something definitely to be said there. Now, obviously, we have two experts here, so I'd love to hear from a more personal perspective. If you guys could share an example of a thought leadership campaign that you guys have managed, and what elements in those campaigns that you feel like really made them successful.
Yeah.
Well, we should definitely send you a link to the LinkedIn ads library, and you can just take a look at all Omni Labs thought leader ads because we exclusively do quite a bit of them. But there's one other one. We work with a company called Notch. They're kind of in the content attribution space, and they did something really cool where they had, again, non-employees from their company that were going to be speakers at the event actually post about the event. And they said all these cool things about it, what it's going to be about, that they're going to be speaking, they're going to be there. Of course, these are big names, people from like Zillow and UPS and big companies. And so anyway, clearly they had audiences behind them again. And again, same type of motion we're talking about in this call. That's kind of a theme is, again, people that are not directly associated with your company saying, hey, we're going to be talking about these cool, exciting topics. It's not necessarily a sell of Notch. It's more just a sell of the event and what the topics are going to be about. Of course, Notch is there, going to be talking about, to a degree, probably their product, but also other things. And so that's kind of an easy 1-2 step. But yeah, we should send you some examples so you can put it in the blog and then see what some actual examples look like. Because there's some other things too that I'll say. One last thing, and we'll shut up. But in terms of thinking about your actual profile too, and so it's not even just the ad itself or the post that you ultimately sponsor. It's now thinking about it a little bit differently because people could go to your website via link or via your little CTA that's at the top of your ad, but they're always probably just going to go to the profile. And they're going to be like, who is this Alexandra girl? Let me see what she's all about. And they're going to look at your profile and go down and say, what's her summary say? Does she have any featured links? What is she actually selling, doing? What value she's trying to bring? What's her experience? Does anyone say anything good about her? And so you almost need to start thinking about the profile page as your landing page now, just as you would on your website. So,
And real quick to piggyback on that, I think that the two big things are tangible value and domain expertise, right? The value that you can depart to someone in an organic post, whether it's sponsored or not, is going to be the winner of anything that you ever do. One other company comes to mind that's in the biotech space that does a lot of thought leadership ads for us, and we're promoting the chief scientific officer, his
Mm.
post, because he has not only the clout from a C-suite perspective to have the credibility, but he is a technical person who can speak to the audience from a scientific perspective and depart true value, not just C-level hype. It's valuable to people who are the science crowd of the world who need that level of expertise. And so that's a really big pull, is that value and then that domain expertise.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I would love to hear about any other examples that you have for me. So definitely throw that link
Oh, we're gonna
over.
load you up. We're gonna load you up. You're
Get
like,
ready.
yeah, stop sending them. There's no more space. So yeah, it'll be great.
Amazing. Thank you. And before I let you guys go, I would love to ask you a couple questions about the future of B2B marketing. So what trends or innovations do you guys anticipate will really shape the future of B2B SaaS marketing?
Mm. It's a very interesting question. How does one answer that without using the words AI?
Exactly. I
Well,
did go there.
to say that, I was just going to comment, just to jump in, is I think that with the uprising of AI from a competitive landscape perspective, not meaning that AI is going to be infused in absolutely everything that marketing does. However, we already see a massive trend of the number of startups entering into the market is just crazy, the number of people that are now becoming companies overnight because of technology. And I think
Mm.
that, what that is doing is going to water down the total number of offerings for a solution that's out in the world. And I think when you water down the number of options that you have, just like when you go to the grocery store and you're trying to buy a box of cereal, of the 7,000 boxes of cereal that are on the aisle, you kind of get that fatigue with, well, what do I choose? And I think for me, one point is unique value. I think we're going to have to provide a lot more unique value in order to cut through the red tape of all of these companies that are now playing in the same space and competing against us, because there's just going to be a ton of them. And a lot of them are going to fall off to the wayside because of lack of value and lack of product fit. And there will be winners that rise up. But that's one thing that I can mention that's going to be important.
Yeah, I'd add to that. And I think this has been going on for a while. And it's really just a move more towards brand marketing and getting away from the direct response mentality that I think we all still live and breathe today to a degree. And so there's more and more brands now that are seeing certainly paid advertising, since that's our space, is not just a click to landing page to conversion. Certainly that's a part of the story, right? But there's a whole bunch of other things you can do. And I think in the world that we play in with Series A to Series D companies, most of them are not the sales forces of the world. So you're not seeing billboards, TV, podcasts, and many other things. But all these things are starting to become incredibly important because the brand is ultimately what drives demand just in the long term. And so that's what we need to wrap our heads around. Everyone ideally wants to say that one ad, that one channel, that one whatever was the thing that did it. And that does feel good. And we should do those things because you got to keep in mind the short term. But I think we're going to continue to see a huge pullback, especially as attribution just gets more and more difficult. The privacy landscape is getting more strict, especially in the U.S. And so we're just going to see just kind of an uprising of, all right, great, we've got tools, we can measure things to as best we can, but we need to start really focusing on how do we actually drive the brand and make our brand more well known and trusted and credible. Kind of like we're saying, because this whole thing goes round in circles with thought leader ads. Thought leader ads is a format type, it's a tactic. It's not a strategy by any stretch, but it rolls into the same thing we're talking about in building credibility, trust, and building a brand long term where there's actual human connection to the brand versus just, a bunch of stuff coming out of the company's name. So I think that's going to be a huge thing. But unless you had some ideas too, Alexandra, just put you on the spot.
I don't know how much of an authority I am on this topic. I wish I did have a little bit more, but I mean, I like everyone else, AI is like the top of mind for sure.
Totally.
I think it's absolutely going to completely transform the way marketing works, like at all. And like Jason mentioned, more and more people are entering the space, more and more people are becoming entrepreneurs. So much so that the market's getting saturated. And I completely agree. And I would love to hear from both of you as we wrap this up, kind of your advice to other entrepreneurs that are entering the B2B marketing space. What kind of things they can do to make themselves stand out and shake up the industry a little bit more?
The biggest thing for me would be just don't create tech when there's no problem or actual need in the market for it. I feel like, I don't know, Jason and I had this conversation. There's unfortunately, I mean, love them to death, some great companies out there trying to do great things, but unfortunately, they raised a lot of money and there's just really not the pain point that exists that they are solving. At least it's painful enough to solve. Let's put it that way, right? It's the whole like vitamin and Advil or Tylenol, analogy. And so that'd be the biggest takeaway, and it's tough. I mean, there's sometimes you don't know until you get a little bit deeper into it, so sometimes you have to spend a few bucks to learn a few things. But to Jason's point and to your point, about AI as well as just products being created at a faster rate, I think that's good in one way because we'll be able to create products a lot cheaper and a lot faster, waste a lot less money to get some data points back so that we don't have this problem where we spent $20 million on hiring a whole bunch of people and building this product that ultimately is not really that exciting and no one really wants that bad. And so that's why you see these huge attrition rates fall off from Series A to B to C. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Last time I checked, it was something like 40% of companies only make it from Series A to Series B. I mean, that's crazy, right? There's a lot of companies. And so anyway, I think that'd be my takeaway. Jason, I'm sure has his.
I got four little things if you wanted to get into the B2B marketing space, right? Be realistic. Maybe I should paint the opposite picture because we don't want competition as OmniLab. However, be realistic. Don't oversell. Let the data do the decision making, right? And then what I say a lot, marketing is not magic. It's a means of communication. Remember the limitations, play within the game's rules. And again, be realistic because that's a big sticking point for a lot of people who are not only entering the space, but leveraging marketing as a whole is unrealistic expectations around what the possibility of marketing is and the duration of time it's going to take to get there. So with those things in check, we can all win.
That's great. Thank you. And that wraps up our industry insights with OmniLab's Jonathan Bland and Jason Steele. For more industry insights content, go to our blog, learn.g2.com/tech/industry-insights. See you all next time. And thank you so much again, Jonathan and Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll chat here soon.